You guys clicked on this video because, like me, loved Tron Uprising and wanted to see how it ended. I took it upon myself to see it to the end. I wrote a detailed draft for 17 new episodes featuring the most important lines in the episode. This is not a full script. My intent is that you guys can watch this video like it's a season 2 anytime you want to binge watch the show. So I included timestamps so you can jump to the episode where you left off. Before we get into the show, I have some vital information. If you have watched this intro before, feel free to skip to the timestamp on screen. This is the most important note. I felt Season 1, Episode 18, No Bounds, was a great conclusion to the first season, and I also felt that Cutler's return and repurposing in Terminal felt rushed. That being said, I moved Season 1, Episode 19, Terminal, to Season 2, Episode 4, with no other changes to the episode. This means the first 3 episodes of my Season 2 take place in between 2 pre-existing episodes, No Bounds and Terminal. I think that makes sense. I went back in time to the ISO War era in a few episodes. I ran into conflicting lore between Tron Legacy and its tie-in video game prequel, Tron Evolution. So, for the sake of clarity, Tron Evolution is not canon to my Season 2. The lore in the video game not only conflicts with Legacy with a few lines of dialogue, but it's also just less popular and, in my opinion, less interesting. So basically, Tron Legacy, and most importantly, Tron Uprising are canon to Season 2. Spoilers ahead, so watch Season 1 on Disney Plus before continuing here. I am not an animator, or really a great artist, so don't expect fully animated scenes. This is just a concept of script. I did get some help from different artists. Their credit will be in the description, as well as the bottom right of the screen when their art is shown.
Anything else on screen belongs to Disney and its affiliates. That, or it's some random image I pulled from Google.
I am not affiliated with Disney. I have not been paid to do this. This is a hypothetical fan fiction that closely follows and adds to the Disney-owned franchise. Lastly, the feature hasn't rolled out to me just yet, but in the future, you can listen to my director's commentary on this video by going into Settings, then clicking on Audio Track, then clicking on the director's commentary audio track. This allows you to listen to the season in the background while I talk about choices and changes I made for this project. Again, I don't know exactly when this will be implemented, but perhaps on a future rewatch, it will be available. Without any further ado, here's the final season to Tron Uprising. Episode 1, Code of Conduct, Part 1.
The Renegade is on Tesla's ship, blowing out some tanks. He sneaks away in all the commotion using his light chute to escape. During his descent, a loud alarm blares.
A program on the ground hears the alarm and looks up. She sees the Renegade floating down and tracks to where he'll land. He makes it to the ground before the occupation could see where he went, and the unnamed program finds the Renegade in an alleyway where she asks him for a favor. He's startled at first, but she puts him at ease. "I didn't mean to startle you. I like what you're doing here in Argon." She explains that programs all over Argon have been disappearing mysteriously. She hopes he could keep an eye out for her friend. She's worried about how much she's been missing work, but mostly misses dancing with her. He says he'll look into it, but first he asks for details of when the programs disappeared. We cut to Beck riding to Tron's hideout. He hits a rock that launches him off of his bike. Beck has to walk the rest of the way to the hideout. Beck begins teaching Tron how to use the mechanics wrench. It's a handy tool that could prove useful for Tron one day. While doing this, Beck is also talking about the disappearing programs. He hates that programs have to deal with missing friends because he's felt that way with Bodhi before. Tron gets slightly frustrated with not being able to find the damaged code on Beck's bike. "You just gotta keep working at it. You got this." Tron works at it a bit longer and fixes the bike. "See, I told you." Tron looks at Beck with a slight smile and says, "You know, getting frustrated over your problems is normal, but it isn't going to find those programs any sooner. Like the bike, you just have to stick to it." Beck jokingly rolls his eyes. "Always a teaching moment with you, isn't it?" Back at the garage, Beck suggests he, Zed, and Mara hit up the club for some energy and some lighthearted fun, something they need. They talk about how the garage hasn't felt the same since Abel has been gone. They dance for a bit, and then Beck spots Cutler talking to some programs across the room. His fun-filled evening has now become a mission. He finds a moment to slip away from his friends, and he walks in on Cutler talking about a new order. Things are changing in Argon for the better. Beck begins to talk with Cutler about the disappearing programs. The programs that were talking with Cutler before mentioned that some of their friends had been disappearing as well. Beck asks about the details of the disappearing acts, and a few details were aligning with the program he met earlier. For starters, programs were most likely alone when they were kidnapped. 2, they were only gone for a little bit, meaning the program napping was very fast. And 3, no program witnessed the disappearings, but the programs were last seen leaving to a sky-facing open area, such as an alleyway. Beck leaves the club with Cutler, and the two devise a plan to get Beck captured personally, with Cutler trailing behind from a distance. Then, if anything goes wrong, Cutler's there to break him out. After Mara and Zed realize that Beck has disappeared again, they ride around Argonne on a date of sorts to look for him. They talk about how upset they are that he can't even stick around at hangouts that he had the idea for. They're frustrated that after Bodhi died, he's been very distant. On one hand, they want to be upset with him, but they're also just genuinely concerned for their friend. Cut back to Beck in an open area between the garage and another building, the perfect spot to be kidnapped. He's getting impatient when, out of nowhere, within seconds, a black guard that halo jumped out of a recognizer grabs Beck and slingshots up like a bungee cord under tension. Beck blacks out. Tesler wishes that the Jolly Tricksters were not still vandalizing his city. Pavel pulls up the records of when they were being tortured and traces them to a building in Argonne. Paige, Bartik, and Hopper are sent after Raskay and Moog. Beck awakes in a pod, similar to the one Tron was in. His disk is locked. There are hundreds of programs in pods next to him, some asleep, most stirring from their slumber. Beck grabs his baton and opens his bike. It immediately shatters the pod and an alarm sounds. His disk unlocks. He rides the bike alongside the edge of the other pods, cutting them open with his newly unlocked disk, freeing as many programs as possible, but Sentinels storm in quickly. Cutler drops in through a vent, gesturing to follow him. Beck and the other programs follow suit, but are all derezzed or blocked by guards. Beck does his best to get the guards off the civilians, but is unsuccessful. After a bit of fighting, he's pulled away by Cutler before he gets himself derezzed. They climb into the vents and make their way to an elevator shaft. We cut to outside a building with Paige, Bartik, and Hopper yells, "Programs with the name of Raskay and Moog, you are under arrest for being renegade sympathizers. Come out with your hands in front of you and your disc unarmed." Raskay and Moog send a signal to Mara for help. They then walk out as instructed and surrender. Meanwhile, Mara and Zed are riding around on a bike. Mara gets a message in her helmet. She instructs Zed to change course. Back at the mysterious ship, as they continue down the elevator, Cutler doesn't specify what kind, but he says they were in a very large ship that he doesn't quite know the purpose of yet. The elevator shaft goes through the refueling station and connects to a cargo train that would get them back to land. The nature of the cargo train and the elevator doesn't allow Beck to see what kind of ship. Cutler and Beck get on the cargo train and push their way towards the engine. They figure out how to start it up and change the set course from Gallium to Argon. Black guards pour into the engine car, leaving Beck and Cutler trapped. End of line. Episode 2, Code of Conduct, Part 2. Beck is knocking out guards when he realizes Cutler is doing a little more than knocking them out. Cutler kills a hefty amount of guards, seeing as it's faster than being careful not to hurt them. During this fight, the control console gets damaged and the windscreen is shattered. As the train speeds out of control, a black guard throws a bomb at Beck, but it misses and flies out the broken windscreen. The bomb blows up the track, immediately derailing and sending the train plummeting into the water. The water crashes against the few remaining guards, Beck and Cutler. The duo swims to the back of the car and seals the door to slow the sinking. The train is completely vertical, meaning the only way out is teamwork and moving up. We cut to Raskay and Moog walking towards an armored truck with a turret and a prisoner cell. They're thrown in the cell and locked away. They hear scuffling outside when the door flings open. The two clamber out, disc drawn. They see Mara reach out and grab her disc from the air. She and Zed, with their helmets on, continue fighting. Raskay and Moog get on their bikes and scoop up Zed and Mara. The four ride off, Zed and Mara on the back of the bikes, getting chased by Paige's task force and being shot at all across town. Meanwhile, as they climb up the vertical train, Beck and Cutler argue about the morality of killing for the greater good. Cutler points out that violence is all programs know. They literally show up to violent executions and even play violent games with their friends. He thinks that they would be willing to fight a violent revolution. Beck hates the idea of killing because it snuffs out any chance that program had to change or do right by the grid. If the occupation kills programs, and so does Beck, What's the difference between them and him? The difference is that the occupation has forced our hands. We're fighting a war, not a practice fight. Cutler points out that the programs like Pavel, Tesla, Dyson, and Clue won't change because they're so set on causing chaos. He's not saying we should kill every program, but when it comes down to you and someone who continually attempts to seriously hurt you and others, it should come down to your survival. Cutler has seen violence in the ISO wars and knows that it's hard, but sometimes you have to be the one holding a bigger stick. We're fighting against a regime. Our enemy doesn't care who does and doesn't die. They care about one thing: control. And I don't want them to think I'm okay with that. If they send someone to control me, I'm gonna fight back. I'm done running. They started the fight. I'm ending it. Zed and Mara's chase moves from the city to a highway by the shoreline. Mara turns around on the back of the bike. She sprays the graffiti code all over the truck's windscreen, blinding the drivers. They roll down the windows to peek out and get a better view. Meanwhile, as Cutler and Beck climb towards the back of the train, they grab materials for a makeshift boat. Eventually, they reach the final car, still barely above the water. They build the boat on top of the water, but the train is sinking and the water is submerging things. Water breaks through the wall, displacing cargo, and falls on Cutler. Beck has to swim down and free his friend from this watery grave and pull him up to the boat that resides on the surface. After catching his breath, Cutler says they should swing back around and inspect the large ship. Beck figures he should get back to his friends, make sure they don't totally hate him. Besides, they need to let the waves settle before making it rocky again. That was a metaphor, by the way. Beck says they'll keep in touch. They head back to land. Cutler gets off the makeshift boat and rides away on his bike. Beck zooms along the Argonne coastline where he sees the Jolly Tricksters getting chased by a large truck with a turret being sprayed with the Tron Lives graffiti. He turns sharp, kicking up water to help distract from the transformation into the Renegade disguise. After making it to land, the Renegade takes out the turret and damages the front wheel, flipping the armored truck. He zooms along the Tricksters, nodding downward as a way of saying, "I know you're still uneasy about me, but I care for you and I'm here to help my city." And then zooms ahead again. Later, Bartik is talking to Hopper alone. He expresses that this is starting to feel silly. All we do is chase down people who really haven't done anything. I mean, besides conspiring with the Renegade, but is he really that bad, Hopper? I mean, he saved you from being derest after you were framed. Hopper slightly nods. Are we able to just leave? I mean, without them being suspicious of our loyalties and derezzing us? To which, I don't know, but I guess we'll just have to wait for the moment, I guess. End of line. Episode 3. So long, Abel. Tron walks in on Beck's training, practicing hitting opponents before they disappear. Tron asks, "Mind if I join?" "Sure, but I don't have a lot of time. The local shops are salvaging the wreckage from the crane." Beck says they're holding a funeral of sorts to kick off the cleanup. It's fitting that a program like Abel is given such respect, seeing all he's done for the community. Which reminds me, you never told me how you two even met. Tron and Beck are playing Disc Wars during this conversation. There's occasional breaks in Tron's narration to show the fight. Tron and his elite squad often needed repairs, so in his private life, Tron often hung out with Abel to fix things up together. Tron's work friends didn't really know Abel personally, they just knew Tron had a guy that helped him out from time to time. Abel was a newer program, well, relative to Tron that is. Abel had a fascination for how things worked and the history of the grid. Tron gifted Abel his NCOM 786 when he needed a ride that was a little more low profile. He also gifted Abel a few other keepsakes that were regularly displayed in the office, such as a bit of his own. The conversation ends when Tron grows weak, ending the battle.
"Oh, I meant to ask you, any new developments on the missing programs?" Tron asks as he heads back to his healing chamber. On his way out the door, Beck pauses. "I was able to trace them to a large ship. They were sleeping in some kind of glass tube. I was outnumbered pretty quickly, so I'll have to have another go at it soon." Whatever it is, it can't be good. The sooner you get more details, the better."
Programs are at the garage, conversing. Mara and Zed are carrying a large, blank panel. They get everyone's attention, which is followed up by Zed, starting a unified ceremony. He starts by saying how much he misses Abel, but how he's grateful for his time spent with Abel. He'd be half the mechanic he is today without Abel's help. Link speaks up. "Even when no one else was there for me, Abel was. He always said hello to me with a smile on his face." Dash chimes in. "Abel was good to us, even though sometimes we were acting a little unruly." Hey man, I'm cool. Dash swipes away at the bit. A random female program chimes in saying he was a pretty hard worker and he pushed us to be, but was also understanding if we had places to be from time to time. Beck expresses his gratitude for Abel letting him transfer garages. We flash back to a mechanic disc war tournament. Everyone is having a blast. Beck meets Bodhi on the battlefield and after the tournament asks, "Hey Abel, I was curious if I could come work for you at your garage. I've really enjoyed hanging out with you guys and I think I have a lot to learn." Of course, this proposition came to fruition. Without Abel, he wouldn't have the support system he has currently. Beck points out that with Abel gone, they'll need a new head of the garage, and he thinks Mara would be a great candidate. The programs unanimously agree. She's grateful for the opportunity that they've given to her just now. She feels she's really grown as a program because Abel has always believed in her and what she's capable of. She starts tearing up a little bit. Zed pulls her in with one arm. It's a quick, slightly awkward, but kinda cute side hug. She accepts it, placing her head on his shoulder for a bit before he pulls away. The programs talk about how Abel was always there for them, even when no one else was. Mara's tears amount to frustration. Abel can't be there for her because the renegade took him away forever. This creates a bit of controversy. Some programs agree with her anger. Others, like Zed and Beck, don't see why the renegade would even do such a thing. He had nothing to gain from it. All of this is eventually settled with them deciding that being mad at the renegade isn't going to bring Abel back. Mara knows these words are true, but it still hurts knowing your mentor is gone. The programs flip around a large empty panel. A giant photo of Abel and the garage crew is revealed. The gathering ends when Beck looks at the photo and says, "Thanks for the ride. So long, Abel." End of line. Episode 4, Terminal. Formerly Season 1, Episode 19. No changes, just shifted from Season 1, Episode 19 to Season 2, Episode 4. This means the first season only has 18 episodes. The added context of the previous 3 episodes that I just read means a few things for Terminal. First of all, Cutler's entrance in this episode feels a little more playful. The conversation shifts from, "I haven't seen you in ages," to, "I thought I recognized that fighting. How's it going?" Secondly, Tron's healing chamber incident feels much more gradual. We see him physically ill from Cyrus's attack in Season 1, Episode 18, and it just kind of progresses from there until, the healing chamber breaks. Lastly, Cutler's death feels much more monumental for Beck. The episodes now have time to breathe and give Beck a proper moral struggle. Before Code of Conduct Part 1 and 2, Beck wouldn't kill anyone, which forces others around him or the environment to kill for him. Beck now understands sometimes violence is necessary against bad actors. Cutler, by the end of Terminal, had fully embraced the repurposing. This was the first time Beck was forced to actually have to make a choice to de-res or save a program. And I think that's a very, very important change. Episode 5, Road to Perfection. Tron and Beck are talking about the good news. The Uprising has finally begun. And Beck is eager to bring in the new recruits, but Tron immediately points out that there's also some bad news. They look out at an orange-filled horizon. Tesler and his crew await Clue and Dyson. Tesler tries to give him a warm welcome, but Clue immediately cuts him off. "I want you power under the assumption you were adequate for the task of securing Argon, but I assumed wrong. So I'll give you a choice not everyone gets, so choose wisely." Clue gives him either two options. Either Tesler gets derezzed right then and there, or he can fight for his survival in the games. Tesler chooses the games. "Very well then. Seeing as you're a fairly competent fighter, I'd like to give you a challenge, in the form of Dyson." Dyson looks surprised for a brief moment, but lets the concern subside. Once Tesler is taken away, Clue expresses to Dyson, "Tesler should be a fairly easy opponent for you, comparatively speaking. I mean, after all, you have been trained under Tron and I." Pavel and Paige are shocked at this news. Pavel immediately sucking up to Clue, but Clue reassures them that they aren't responsible for Tesler's failures, but they will be held accountable for their own, and will have to prove themselves or else they'll also get derezzed. Pavel stops by Tesler's prison cell. He kicks the disc upgrade under the door. "After all the trouble this little thing has been through, I couldn't think of a more fitting time to put it to use." Pavel smiles as Tesler puts the upgrade on. Pavel turns and walks away. An announcement is made across town with a picture of Tesler. "Suffer no longer under the reign of this imbecile. Meet at the Games Arena at the end of next cycle to see General Tesler fight for his freedom."
Beck and Tron are on top of a nearby wall overlooking the arena, where Tesla is waiting and Dyson is approaching. Tron asks Beck what his plan is, to which Beck unsuredly responds, "Save them, obviously, or maybe, I don't know. This could turn them at ties of the Uprising, but we can't just let them kill each other, can we? Can we?" Beck looks at Tron. Tron says nothing. This fight could possibly end as a great victory for the rebellion. It could be everything the programs of the grid need. The fight between Dyson and Tesla begins. The fight is the following moments intermixed with flashbacks to Season 1 and all the times Tesla attempted the de-resolution of Beck and his friends. Blows are exchanged between Tesla and Dyson, each holding up well, with Tesla having the upper hand in speed and hitting harder when Dyson doesn't dodge. Tesla pulls out the right arm cannon from Season 1 Episode 11 and blows off Dyson's left arm and part of his face. Dyson locks in and throws his disc, Tesla swatting it to the ground. Dyson uses the light rope from Scars Part 2 to snap around the distant disc. Tesla swaps the gun for his extended right arm. Dyson dodges and wraps the yo-yo around the extended arm, then tugging the rope, corkscrewing the arm and cutting it, shattering it to pieces. Dyson then swings the yo-yo around Tesla's left ankle, damaging everything from the left knee down. Tesla flings his disc into the yo-yo wire, leaving Dyson without his disc. He extends his left arm repeatedly into Dyson. Dyson eventually makes it out of the punches and rolls towards the disc. But Tesla's quicker, uses his disc to bounce Dyson's against a wall. He sheathes his disc and pushes Dyson to the wall. Dyson punches the arm a few times before looking down at his disc. The final memory then flashes, is Beck nearly dying how Dyson is right now, scars forming under the pressure of Tesla's hand, the agonizing pain seeping out of the cracks. Tron snaps Beck out of his trance. "Now's the time to make your decision. Leave them. Clue's the one doing this. The people need to see that Clue doesn't even care for his own generals." Tron pushes the boundary just a little further with the test. "What about my friend down there?" "Your friend died long ago. That's just a husk with the same name." "Very well then. I just thought saving programs was usually the thing that we do." Usually. Dyson uses his foot to flick the disc towards his right hand, but Tesla's faster. He withdraws his hand, grabbing the disc midair. He puts the disc on the ground before crawling at Dyson. He repeatedly kicks Dyson with the nub of his leg and also punches him. Dyson lands on the ground, backing away when Tesla kneels on Dyson, grabbing Dyson's disc from the ground and repeatedly cutting him until he remains motionless. Tesla is exhausted. He lazily crawls a little ways, but is unable to move further, staying put on his hands and knees, or whatever is left of them. Clue's throne ship flies in the square. He grabs Tesla's disc from his back and uses it to lift his head. Tesla is on his knees while Clue delivers a few words, fidgeting with Tesla's disc. "On the road to perfection, certain imperfect things need to be cut loose. I was hoping you weren't one of them." By the end of the speech, the disc is in both of Clue's hands. He finishes his words and uses his strength to slowly snap the disc like digital silly putty. Tesla gets stretched far and wide slowly into a bunch of cubes and thin, colorful lines. Once the disc snaps, the cubes instantaneously blip like an old TV turning off. He doesn't see it, but as Clue tosses Tesla's halved disc, the upgrade separates on the ground. Dyson died at the hands of a cheater. Programs are either stunned and silent or cheering. Dyson calls out to Clue. It's too quiet for anyone but Clue to hear. You gambled with my life." "Is it really gambling if I thought without uncertainty that you would win? I could have been duressed, and that's on you. You sound frustrated." "Frustrated? You sent me here to die, to take care of your problem, just for show. And what a show you delivered. Unless you can crawl back to that ship, I don't deem you strong enough to carry on the difficult road ahead of us." Dyson attempts to crawl for a moment, but it's pointless. Dyson can't muster the strength. Dyson calls out to Clue with a raspy voice. I was loyal to you, to the cause. I'd lay my life down for it." Interesting choice of words. Clue turns around and walks away. Dyson reaches out, his hands splayed open, straining, and then turning into a fist. Clue boards his throne ship and looks at Pavel, asking him to finish off Dyson and clean up the mess. After Clue walks past Paige, she gives him a disgusted side-eye. As she thinks about her mentor, her breathing increases heavily. Pavel eyeballs the shattered disc upgrade for himself yet again, but realizes If Clue were to find out about his link to Dyson's undoing, he could be under serious fire. Pavel finishes off Dyson and sweeps the cubes into a bin, a smile on his face. Pavel senses a promotion within his grasp. End of line. Episode 6, The Purge, Part 1. The episode opens with Cora and Kevin at Flynn's hideout. Cora heading towards the elevator. She hopes to get out of the hideout for a little bit. She gets tired of being cooped up all the time. Kevin calls for her to be safe and to not be out too long. She boots up the light runner, and as she drives into the Outlands, a head-on shot transitions us into her past. Riding her bike through Argonne, watching programs getting derezzed for resisting arrest. She deactivates her bike and begins walking the streets where she is almost immediately stopped and asked for identification. Why? I didn't do anything wrong, did I? The Sentinel gestures to her light lines.
You better hope that's altered code and not just your natural appearance.
He leg sweeps her, kneeling onto her back, grabbing her disc. Zeus calls after him from a small club. Seeing as you're in my doorway, I'm gonna ask you to unhand her. They may not be allowed in the city, but they are allowed in my place of business. Besides, friends of the ISOs get free drinks. The Sentinel places the disc back and dismounts Cora. Zeus welcomes him and Cora inside. Zeus pulls her aside to a private room, saying he knows the kind of situation she's in and knows a program who can help her. This friend of his is an ISO that directs people to ISO safe houses. The system uses Zeus's supplier space on a solar sailor as transport. We cut to Beck being a little lax on his training. Now that Tron is healed, he's been pushing Beck extra hard. This is what they've been fighting for, and Tron doesn't want his renewed energy to go to waste, especially with Cyrus planning who knows what, and Clue now in full control of the grid. Whoa, what do you mean Cyrus is planning something? I thought you took care of him. Tron was yet to tell Beck that he escaped right before the bomb blew up. This would be the second time you've kept me in the dark about this. I mean, if we're gonna keep working together, we need to trust each other. And you keeping secrets makes it hard for me to trust you. So come on, what else are you hiding from me? Without Cyrus, Dyson and I would have shared the same fate. Repurposed into Clue's greatest weapon. For a while, Cyrus willingly served under Clue, but eventually his leader grew more and more spiteful towards the ISOs, which I guess Cyrus saw as the only way the grid could truly progress. Anyway, after he defected, freeing me in the process, I began training Cyrus as the first renegade. He was determined to make the grid a better place for the ISOs. Almost a little too determined. A montage of Cyrus beating up Sentinels and helping ISOs get to Zeus alternates with a montage of Cora getting in contact with and talking with the Transportation ISO. Cora is told she's going to the largest safe house called the Watchtower. The Watchtower is the egg-shaped building we see in Tron Legacy. Cyrus is shown throughout the montage having a smile on his face, with no light lines on his face just yet. He loves the ISOs and is always happy to help. He's told by Zeus that there's a fairly large shipment of ISOs heading to Tron City, and is wanting Cyrus to make sure it runs smoothly, seeing as security is heightened all across the grid. Cyrus accepts the mission gratefully. Cora is in a dimly lit box, fully sealed from the outside. She has 20 or so ISOs with her, one of which is Ada. There's friendly, helpful chatter among the ISOs. The talking must have been a little loud because now there's a disc cutting through the wall. The ISOs are now fearing for their lives. A group of blackguards pulls the crate hole open, launching a few light grenades into the crate and plugging the hole again. It happens so fast that they have no time to react. The bomb is ticking when they hear D-Res screams from outside. Cyrus opens the crate and gestures them outwards. They sprint away from the crate as it explodes behind them. The ISOs thank Cyrus for his help when a handful of blackguards and sentinels walk down the loading aisle. Cyrus starts to distract the guards with his disc. He moves them into a corner with the ISO's help, and then tells the ISOs to make a break for an onboard recognizer. Cora leads the way and boots up the ship. Meanwhile, Cyrus disarms the last of the guards and begins beating him up. The ground and pound results in cubes beginning to break loose before he pauses and looks down at the scared program. Cyrus seems out of breath and grabs his disc and de-reses the guy. He then sprints off to the recognizer and flies the ISOs away from the sailor. They aren't followed, thankfully. Cyrus decides to drop them onto the roof of the watchtower and dispose the recognizer away from the city to avoid further suspicion of the ISOs. At the tower, it's peaceful. ISOs are mingling and drinking energy. Cora and Ada look around, not a stressed ISO in sight. You're finally safe. Back at Tron's hideout, Cyrus is talking about the mission with Tron on the couch. The two are drinking some energy and having a laugh. Cyrus sounds sort of like a kid talking about his field trip. And then we were blasting past the guards full speed. ISOs were helping me, backed them into a corner. It was great. You should have seen the look on their faces, man. They were terrified. Tron is chuckling along with Cyrus, and the best part, not a single ISO got injured.
The camera zooms out as the friends laugh together. End of line. Episode 7, The Purge, Part 2.
It's a peaceful morning. Cora's talking with Ada about their plans for the day when a faint orange glow slowly lights up the room. All the ISOs on the floor stand and walk over to the window. A few gasps escape the ISO's mouth. Cora and a few others know what's to come. A few shots of a blue cityscape being illuminated by a bask of orange light. A metaphor for the beginning of Clue's reign. The light grows brighter and brighter until the overbearing weight of the orange is followed by tanks and troops. And at the front, a slow-rolling Clue on his light cycle. To his right is Dyson, and to his left, Tesla. They pull up in front of the watchtower. Clue dismounts and approaches the front entrance, where a few ISOs walk out to meet him. A conversation is exchanged. Clue demands the ISOs come out peaceably and surrender, or else he'll make them surrender not so peaceably. An ISO at the front denies this request.
This is our home just as much as it is yours. We're not bothering anyone here, just trying to live, same as you.
I beg to differ. Programs across the grid are uneasy with your presence.
Because of the lies you put in their head, and they believed it. They follow you so blindly because of the grasp you have on their souls. It's not freedom you're giving them, it's fear. Of us for now, and when we're gone, fear of what you may do to them.
Clue activates his disc and beheads the leader ISO, the other ISOs cowering backwards. So be it. Dyson and Tesla gesture to their armies with a flick of the wrist. Tanks raise their cannons to varying angles. Blackguards throw their discs to the fleeing ISOs. Light choppers lift and surround the building. Sentinels march in unison and form a circle around the watchtower, planting light grenades on each structural pillar, activating it and marching back. Clue signals for the tanks and choppers to fire.
So he destroyed them.
Inside the watchtower is mass hysteria. ISOs are screaming and crying as glass shatters. A few programs close to the windows are derezed by incoming artillery fire. And then the bombs go off. The floor jolts and plummets down. The upper levels have light chutes near the elevators. Cora suggests she and Ada grab one and glide out. A few ISOs follow suit. As they jump out the window opposite the side Clue approached, the building was falling underneath them. The ISOs are gathered in a skydiving circle. An out-of-focus cannon shot hits an ISO. Ada and Cora immediately split from the rest of the group, yelling to disband the group, making it harder to get hit. Cora and Ada land in an alleyway and notice some scratches from the rubble that hit them on their way out of the crumbling building. They sneakily walk around for a bit and eventually find a hospital, which they enter and are met by 3 mischievous programs. They're knocked over and pushed about. Cora screams when Ada falls unconscious.
Leave us alone!
This is where Season 1, Episode 6, Isolated, takes place. Tron walks into the training room where he sees Cyrus de-rezzing blackguards in a blind rage. One program he has pinned to the floor and punches the helmet till it cracks. He keeps punching with alternating fists, letting out a scream as he repeatedly bashes the program's face into cubes. Tron pulls Cyrus away as his fists reach the floor, the training hologram disappearing. Cyrus's face is different. He altered his code to have light lines spread across his skin. It symbolizes that although the ISIS have been purged, he still carries their burden. Cyrus begins crying. They killed them. Every single ISO dead. Tron shows a quiet moment with Cyrus. What's even the point anymore? The point? There's millions of programs suffering under Clue's rule. Cyrus makes the argument that programs don't really matter in the long run. They serve no greater purpose than to fill the world. The ISOs were the only thing worth fighting for, and now they're gone. At first he thinks out loud it's all Clue's fault, but quickly backtracks and realizes it's Kevin's fault. It's his fault for giving Clue this insatiable lust for perfection, an impossible hunger on an unfixable broken grid. Tron refutes that there's still programs with friends, jobs, and lives of their own, and each of these programs is worth saving. It's what Kevin wanted and was fighting for when Clue rebelled. Cyrus mumbles that the perfection Clue and Kevin were searching for could only be obtained if it was perfect from the start. Seeing as programs can't really change for the better, they're just a whole bunch of code. Cyrus walks towards the doorway, but Tron throws his disc to get Cyrus's attention, rebounding and making it back to his hand. Tron asks Cyrus what he means by that. Cyrus tells him, "It means we're done here. You're weak. You're pathetic. You can't even lead a revolution properly. I'm gonna walk out this door and you're never going to see me again. I can't let you leave knowing you want total grid death. I won't let you destroy my home. Is it really a home if the ISOs weren't welcomed in? Is it really a home if people are de-rezzed or taken away every day? It's not my home. Not anymore." Tron and Cyrus get in a fight. Tron does alright, but ultimately ends up on the ground. Like I said, weak, pathetic, and now alone. Goodbye, Tron. Cyrus leaves without turning back. End of line. Episode 8, The Purge, Part 3. The introductory recap would include chorus scenes from Season 1, Episode 6. This will bridge the gap of where we left off and where we're at this episode without having to repeat events from an episode we've already seen. Cora is fleeing the hospital with Ada. There's choppers with searchlights, meaning they have to hide behind pillars, buildings, and parked vehicles. They're pretty successful till they turn a blind corner in a rush and bump into a sentinel. The two ISOs fight together, knocking out the sentinel relatively easy, but the encounter holds them up, making their location known. A chopper moves in pursuit, shooting at them. Cora grabs her baton, opening up a bike for her and Ada. They race off as they're shot at. Tron is sneaking around a building where he runs into Abel, and not by accident. Tron asks for a favor. As the best mechanical engineer he knows, Tron needs Abel to create an inescapable prison for Cyrus. The biggest challenge for Abel being that Tron has no clue where Cyrus is.
Essentially, he needs a permanent prison with a portable entry.
It would be extremely difficult, but not impossible. Probably. Tron asks Abel to handle the prison while he handles the prisoner. In a large building with a similar skill to Tesla's ship, Tron is sneaking around the air vents until he finds a security room with 3 guards. He drops in, knocks them out, and begins looking at security camera footage of the city. No sign of Cyrus, until a large explosion rocks the room. He climbs up the vent again and heads towards the explosion to see what happened. It appears down below everyone was also looking at the explosion, but due to their low altitude, unlike Tron, failed to see Cyrus tying up 6 programs, one of which was a program with blue lights on her suit, who appears to have been unboxing a tank for someone when the explosion went off. Cyrus drags them towards a recognizer in the commotion. He waits for the smoke to clear and the programs go back to what they were doing before taking off. Tron drops down the vent and uses his light chute to glide over to the recognizer, barely making it aboard as it pulls away. Cora and Ada are riding around. Ada is shot in the back, de-rezzing her. Cubes fall off the slightly damaged bike. Cora pulls into an alleyway where the chopper can't follow her. A distraught Cora bangs on the door, begging to be let in, which she is. The sympathetic program looks at her and immediately knows what's going on. The program moves her upstairs just in time as a black guard knocks on the door, asking if the program has seen the ISO. He denies and the guards eventually leave. The program moves Cora from the 2nd floor to his car, the Light Runner, parked out front. "I'll take you somewhere far away from here. Seems to be the only way you'll be safe." Cyrus is piloting the recognizer over the Outlands when suddenly, Tron drops in through an open hatch. They fight for control while the recognizer narrowly misses mountains. A stabilizer switch is hit during combat, making the recognizer very jumpy. A destabilized recognizer moves akin to the recognizer Kevin pilots in the first Tron. Eventually, the recognizer clips a mountain and starts spinning insanely fast. The centrifugal force keeps Tron and Cyrus pinned to the walls. Cyrus slowly stands up with all of his might. He taps the spinning controls and slows the spin, diving at Tron. Tron fends him off and pulls up on the controls, just barely, pulling up in time so the recognizer bounces off the ground instead of crashing. Cyrus waits till Tron is under the open hatch, and then, in one fluid motion, he grabs Tron's baton, kicks it out the top hatch, pulls down on the controls, sending Tron out of the hatch. Tron holds on for a while, wind pulling his body upwards. As his grip fails him, he throws a tracker onto the recognizer before opening his light chute, gliding to safety, and begins searching for his baton. Cora and the sympathetic program are making small talk, driving to the edge of the city where the program exits the vehicle. "This is a project car of mine. They won't be able to track you, but it's important that you don't stop driving." "Where to?" "Wherever the users guide you. You'll be safe." He pulls out his baton and rides back to the city. Cora drives further into the Outlands. We cut to a dark room with the 6 kidnapped programs locked into chairs. Cyrus is pacing back and forth. A table sits across from the programs. There are 3 syringes and a container which holds a grid bug. He picks up the first syringe and walks over to the program on his leftmost side.
I need the grid to destabilize, but there seems to be no way to do so effectively. He injects the syringe contents into the arm of the program. Until now. Well, maybe.
The first program is injected, and slowly, cube by cube, he reverses back in time, the cubes pulling into himself, until he completely falls apart, his disc hitting the floor. The first test is successful. He then brings 2 programs into a glass cage, injecting one on the way in. Cyrus tells the derising program to kill the other program with his fists. After some persuading, yelling, from Cyrus, he does so. The non-infected program is weak, but the open scars make way for the viral infection. It can spread through contact. Cyrus then grabs the grid bug, injects it, and places it in the glass box. While he does this, we see the 3 programs whispering to each other, nodding and then stopping when Cyrus turns around. Cyrus places them in the glass cage with the grid bug and shuts the door. The grid bug sprints at the programs. One program steps in front of the others and captures it with his hands, getting bit. His hands deres slowly, but while he still has arms and no cuffs, he grabs his disc with his nub arms. He tosses the disc at the female program's cuffs. The cuffs break, and she grabs her disc, throwing it at the bug, deresing it just in time. Cyrus is furious and reaches for the cage door, but stops when he sees Tron lurking in the corner. The 2 programs, now free, slam the door open, knocking Cyrus back. Cyrus throws his disc, deresing the male captive, while narrowly dodging the female captive's disc. He stands up and catches his disc just in time to block incoming attacks from Tron. He dive rolls past the female program over to the deresed program to double up on discs. He holds off their attacks for a while, but is ultimately backed into a corner that he chose. He backs out of the doorway, sprints up the stairs to the roof of his testing room, and starts lagging. Cyrus moves extremely slowly, and his voice lines of confusion start lagging. We pan around from a side shot to a back shot where we see the infinite mirrors trick. Reflections of reflections of reflections are hard for computers to process. That's a true fact, by the way. Abel and Tron move the mirrors towards Cyrus, freezing him in time. These mirrors are designed to compress the lagging Cyrus in between the mirrors in a 2-dimensional space. After Abel uses a machine to push the mirrors together, they pick it up with Cyrus's stolen recognizer and they fly off, the female program tagging along with them to safety. Cora is driving the light runner, but it's slowing down, lights flickering. She gets out and sobs on her hands and knees, the outlands made ever darker by the light runner fading. She feels a hand on her shoulder. She opens her eyes and sees Kevin there smiling. We get another transition shot from her past self to present Cora in the light runner. We find her rolling through Argonne when she sees a program in white being chased by a program in black and orange and... wait, Paige? She shakes off the memories, but the last shot of her this episode shows her glancing back at Paige. Her curiosity has been captured. Tron and Abel are staring at the mirror, which has now been placed as an entrance to Cyrus's prison, aka compressed space. Tron questions its security. Abel ensures it can't be broken from within. Cyrus doesn't have the tools inside the prison to do so. It would take a miracle to get him out of there. Or a curse. End of line. Episode 9. Manipulation. Clue tells Pavel and Paige that to stick around, they'll need to prove themselves useful. Clue wants the insurrectionist found and dealt with. Pavel shows up to the garage wanting death. Paige sees Beck in the crowd and suggests they bring them in to pay with their time for their crimes. Pavel throws a disc and cuts one of the cords holding up a tank. It falls like a pendulum and begins swaying before falling down with a crash. Pavel has started the hunt. In the chaos of people running around and seeking help, Beck slips away and puts on the renegade suit. The chaos slightly settles. Pavel sees Zed and Mara hop on a bike and ride away, so he chases them. The renegade shows up and sees Paige chasing Pavel, Zed, and Mara, so he rides after them. A chase ensues. Eventually, Zed and Mara split, the traffic keeping them separated from their pursuers. Paige and Pavel's attention is now directed at the renegade. The renegade dodges and weaves through traffic, but after taking a wrong exit, he ends up cornered in an alleyway. No way up or forward without a fight. He activates his disc when all of a sudden, Cora drops in. It's a 2v2. Paige is taken back by Cora's appearance. She's confused because She thought Cora had surely been to rest. The renegade is completely confused as to how these two know each other. He doesn't even know who Cora even is. Cora is confused as to why Paige is attacking this random program. The program I met all those cycles ago wanted to help others. What's changed? Paige responds, gesturing to the renegade. That program has caused quite a bit of commotion. The good kind or the bad kind? Paige wrestles with the question for a second before responding. He disrupts the games and he's destroyed property of the occupation. Oh, so he's a nuisance to Clue. Paige, Clue has been causing commotion on the grid for far too long. He convinced everyone that the Ices were monsters with no home. They were born here and they had just as much as right to live as you do. Pavel attempts to butt in the conversation occasionally, looking for a fight, but after a while, he falls silent, taking it all in. The argument is pretty one-sided, mostly just Corey explaining the situation, almost begging for Paige to understand. Beck takes a deep breath and removes his helmet. Paige is flabbergasted. She looks at him long and barely gets out any words. What? What? You hid that? How? You weren't a lost cause, Paige. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. I had to keep it hidden for my safety. I hope you'll understand. Everything seems to click all at once for Paige. A quick montage shows the date, the conversations, the mechanic, and the fighting abilities. She thinks for a moment and says to herself, "Oh, I am an idiot." Before her realization is given away from her face, she directs her gaze at Cora again. Paige asks why she knocked her out. Cora explains it was to make Paige look innocent, plausible deniability of sorts. Cora is breaking through to Paige, who at this point is disappointed with her superiors. Pavel has betrayed her countless times, Tesla, the one who took her in, is dead, Clue essentially killed one of his own just for show. Perhaps the Isos were never even bad. I mean, who knows what the truth is at this point? Maybe they were just painted in a bad light. Everything she thinks she knows is crumbling in this conversation. All of those little bits and pieces of knowledge that she had been questioning this whole time and she had been putting on a shelf, the shelf is finally crumbling. And in this confusion, one thing is clear. She's been standing here with Pavel behind her for far too long. Paige? Pavel prods before activating his disc with a slight grin on his face. He has a plan. She just needs to buy the bait. The grin disappears when Paige turns around at the sound, not knowing who to trust. I've given you time to decide where your loyalties lie. Paige looks at his activated disc. She looks at Beck and Cora. Both have helped her in the past. And then she looks back at Pavel. I don't know. Pavel cuts her off. Oh, Paige. I always knew you were so unreliable. So sad to see another great program fall by the wayside. He dives at her. Pavel and Paige fight for a moment, but as soon as Beck and Cora join in, Pavel backs away quickly. Clue is going to enjoy this succulent knowledge I've acquired. Ha 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 ha! Toodaloo, Paige! Paige reaches out after Pavel, wanting to explain it's not what it looks like, but she hesitates. Paige, now is your chance. Your chance to be free from their manipulation. You don't have to put up with it anymore. We're here for you right now. He stretches out his hand. Paige nods. Cora leads them to the light runner, signaling for the two to follow her. Paige hops in the vehicle with her, and they drive off into the city. Pavel arrives at Clue's throne room. He rats on Paige, showing his disc as proof. He asks for a squad of his own to command, an elite squad, to hunt her down, to which Clue agrees. The trio arrives at a cliffside overlooking the city, where Paige is comforted by Cora and Beck. This time, Paige is the one talking, mad at herself for not seeing it sooner. The end shot parallels the bridge scene from Season 1, Episode 17, Rendezvous. Paige is in the middle, being held close by the renegade, and Cora as they overlook the town. Just as a precaution, I would like to go through your disc to make sure this isn't a setup. I trust you. It's just for our safety. I hope you understand it's nothing personal. Paige quickly hands over her disc, with nothing to hide. No offense taken. I would have done the exact same thing. Beck scans her disc, clearing her of suspicion. Paige wasn't a lost cause after all. End of line. Episode 10. There's something you should know. Cora tells Beck and Paige about an old ISO transitional safe house, no longer in use. Beck, Paige, and Cora set up shop. A large garage holds some shelves with a few old tools. There's a large bunk room, a main meeting room connected to a dusty energy dispensing counter. There's a handful of storage rooms and 2 doors, 3 if you include the large garage door. After the base has been cleaned, Beck shows up at Tron's hideout. He tells him there are some major developments in the revolution. Beck asks Tron to follow him to the Alliance base. Tron is taken aback at first glance. Seeing Paige, their enemy, just chilling is an interesting sight for him. If you want me to be a leader in this revolution, you need to trust me a little bit more. Beck begs for a little bit, but Tron's face eventually goes from concern to wary understanding. Tron trusts Beck. After the surviving programs from the garage have been gathered, Beck in the renegade suit with his helmet up gives a speech. He explains that they have chosen to stand up against Clue. It's a long, difficult road, but they'll be stronger together. First, Beck introduces the programs to Tron. The programs are excited. They ask where he's been. He explains he had to hide away for a bit, waiting for the perfect moment and the perfect successor. Beck then explains why one of their suppressors is sitting there. Right now, Paige has no home. She's been cast aside, and like the rest of us, she's scared. She's a program just like you and me, so as long as she's willing to uplift others around her, I see no problem bringing her under our wing. Murmurs from the crowd show distrust. Paige was the enemy, but the renegade was their new leader of sorts, and Tron was sitting right there, so certainly this can't be as bad as it looks. Beck glances at Tron, who gives a slight nod. Beck removes his mask. His coworkers gasp, but trust him overall. Zed is shocked for a moment, but he quickly turns to see Mara looking at the renegade with disappointment and a lot of anger. Mara storms out of the crowd and into a separate room, Zed right behind her. Paige goes from looking scared to slightly nervous. Beck tells the programs to make themselves at home. Paige thanks everyone and tells them she can tend to wounds and answer questions. She steps away and walks into the bunk room. Beck follows after Zed and Mara. When the door shuts behind him, Mara speaks. Speak? And I don't want any more lies. Beck pauses as he musters up the courage to speak his mind. I'm sorry for not being able to tell you sooner, but as your friend, it was my responsibility to keep you guys safe, and unfortunately that meant lying to you. Mara can't seem to control her hands. She nervously fidgets, pacing back and forth. She's pissed and has every right to be. Zed takes a long pause and breaks the silence. Does explain why you always needed your shifts covered, and why you left us at the club, and why you didn't want me to help when Mara was being brainwashed. Oh, and why you were just a bad friend in general. Like a dam breaking away, Mara's emotions spill out. God. It wasn't your responsibility. It was my choice to help you all those cycles ago, and you turned me away. That was my choice, and you took it. You always wanted the programs of Argon to stand by you, but as soon as I did, your friend, you pushed me away. I'm sorry. You said you had no use for me without Rasky and Moog.
Mara,
You weren't there to help us when we were trapped.
Mara!
You let Abel die. Mara, we don't know what happened. You were never there when we needed you. I did everything to keep you guys safe, okay? I'm sorry. I can't be everywhere. I had to keep it a secret so you two wouldn't get dragged into this. And Abel's the only reason that you guys are even here right now, and I'm so grateful for that. More than you two could ever know, but I hate it had to be him. And I had to turn you away because I wasn't ready to face the consequences of you helping me. I'm sorry for everything. Zed places his hand on Beck's shoulder and forgives Beck before walking out into the main room. Once the two of them are alone, Mara ends the conversation. I hate lying. Don't do it again. She pushes past her friends to the door. Mara pauses and looks over her shoulder at Beck and apologizes for not letting him speak his mind without interruptions, and walks out. After Mara leaves, Cora sticks her head in, telling Beck that she's spent way too long away from Kevin, so she's going to head out soon. Paige, who is now back in her green medic colors with blue accent lines, is looking at a program's scraped up arm. She sustained the injury when Paige and Pavel stormed into the garage. The program asked why Paige was hunting them down that day. I was following orders that hurt you, and I'm sorry. Are you healing this wound because you want to, or were you ordered to do so? I wasn't always a soldier. Helping others is what I do. I think I just got lost somewhere. I think I just needed a fresh perspective. Paige puts the disc on the back of the program. The wound begins to fade. Beck butts into the conversation. Fresh perspective. He looks at the newly healed wound on the program's arm. Looks good to me. How does it feel? Paige looks at Beck, the program looks at Paige, and at the same time the two female programs say, "It feels good. Thank you." Beck then asks Paige for a favor. Beck suggests that the programs turn the main room into a dance room, make up for lost time in a way. There's a giant dance party in the main room of the Resistance base. Paige is the DJ playing some tunes that we've never heard, as well as some familiar pieces, including the song from Paige's past. Paige starts a slightly slower song and dances with Beck. Meanwhile, Zed and Mara dance. Paige thanks Beck for the new home. "I like these colors on you, Paige. They suit you quite nicely," Beck says with a smile. End of line. Episode 11. Upload.
Beck, Tron, Paige, and some other Resistance fighters are sneaking around one of Clue's compounds, stealing 3 light choppers. Before takeoff, a soldier of the occupation calls them. "Please state the program who authorized these vehicles." "Commander Page authorized the takeoff of these vehicles." I'm not seeing any Commander Page that has clearance. Please hold." Page smashes the intercom speaker. "Now's our chance, run it." The 3 light choppers take off. Over the comms, Page instructs the non-flying Resistance members how to disable the trackers. They fly low through the city and into the Outlands. There's a POV shot as programs are snuck up on and have their discs stolen, temporarily. The discs are attached to each other. A quick holographic time-lapse of events plays at the center of the disc. When the time-lapse ends, the stolen disc is placed back on the program, who is then let go. This happens repeatedly while we hear some Cyrus voiceover.
"I was having difficulties thinking of a way to destabilize the grid, so I took to the streets to see if other people's ideas would spark something. Eventually, I stumbled across Link, a program who knows about the Resistance base, so I followed my newfound memory to the Resistance and started stalking it. And eventually I found something interesting."
Cyrus trails Cora on his light bike, and as soon as she leaves the city, he speeds up and deactivates his bike as he jumps onto the light runner. He knocks her out and drives off to his compressed space. Cora stirs, her dreary eyes see a program near a central column holding 2 discs stuck together. This is where his voiceover matches up in the scene.
"I apologize for hitting you over the head, darling. I really do like you guys. If you like us ISOs, why am I here, bound to this chair?" "Well, I had the idea to reverse engineer the ISOs. I mean, they came from the grid out of nothing, so I figured I could go into the grid from something."
Cora asks why he told her all this, seeing she's just gonna get out and find people to stop him.
"Oh, because I want someone to know how I brought freedom to the grid. Unfortunately, there won't be anything left when I'm done. No one to confide in or talk to, so I might as well just throw it out there for you."
Cyrus disconnects the discs and underhand throws Cora's disc into her lap.
"You can go now. I'm wishing you the best out there, Cora. It's a cruel world to the likes of you."
Cora activates the disc with both hands, the blade cutting the cuffs she was in. She gets up and leaves, speeding back to the base where she finds Beck and some others in the garage fixing up the helicopters they just stole. She tells Beck and Tron that a program named Cyrus is trying to upload himself onto the grid.
Beck looks at Tron, a look that says, "I am done with this guy." The rebels are alerted and Cora leads the way to Cyrus's base. Beck pulls up, wide-eyed, staring at a large tower. It looks like a giant antenna coming out of what used to be the whirlpool. The lightning storm overhead shocks the antenna. Every time it does so, the fence surrounding the area also sparks. Beck signals to the choppers to shoot at the building, but every bullet is shocked by the electric fence. The choppers lower to the ground to await further instruction. Cora has an idea. She launches the light runner missiles. The missiles approach the fence, getting shocked, but the explosion is enough to put a hole in it. Beck has a chopper bring him up. He jumps and activates his light jet, swooping in fast and low, getting shocked as he passes through, but making it to the entrance, and he stumbles. Over the intercom, asks Tron and Zed to follow. He asks Paige and Mara to await for his signal. Zed is to find a way to deactivate the walls. Tron and Beck are going to take care of Cyrus. Cora leaves the group, seeing as she's been away from Kevin for quite some time, and it seems like her friends have a pretty good handle of this. During the crash of the second and third light jets, Cyrus looks up.
No, not now. Not yet."
He puts his disc into a tray of some kind, the tray pulling into a port. He hits a button that says read and write, and an upload bar begins. Zed goes a different direction from Tron and Beck. The two heroes stumble across the dark room. Lights slowly come on, the circular room illuminating with a shadowy figure in the middle. Cyrus greets our heroes as they enter his abode.
"Look who finally decided to check in on me. You know, I've been feeling a little under the weather. I thought you were dead, otherwise you would have heard from me sooner. Well, thank you, Beck. I'm glad to see you care. Tron, you're not getting any sympathy from me. Huh. So be it.
Cyrus sprints at Tron with a bow staff, leaping into the air to come down hard on Tron. Beck throws his disc. Cyrus deflects it, landing a hit on Tron's disc. The three begin to fight, Cyrus ultimately taking defense. The upload bar is slowly ticking up. Cyrus is stalling the two heroes, trying to kill him. Zed is exploring another room with a console attached to a tower in the middle. He tries to walk to the illuminated tower. Lightning travels down the walls of the room, trickling, illuminating a far drop down below. Zed makes a sprint for the console, but bullets start firing at him. That, mixed with the floor moving up and down in sporadic waves, makes it impossible for him to reach his goal. He calls Beck over the comm and calls for help. Beck tells Tron to go help Zed while he stays back and fights Cyrus. Tron reluctantly sprints off while Beck continues to fight. The duel between Disc and Staff continues. Tron joins Zed and Zed tells him the situation. Zed has a plan to distract the guns. While Tron uses his disc throwing skills to take out the guns, one by one they do so. Eventually, they get through and deactivate the channel that sends the electricity to the fence. The resistance is let in with a flood. They meet up with Zed and Tron at the entrance of the tower. Come on, Beck may need our help. Cyrus and Beck's battle is intense. We see the upload bar on the machine slowly moving up. Beck isn't pulling his punches. He's fed up with Cyrus hurting people. This is going to be Cyrus's end. Beck has his back to the machine. Cyrus smiles mid-fight. The upload bar is on 99% as Beck dereses Cyrus, the cubes hitting the floor. The resistance stumbles in to see Beck standing above the cubes, exhausted. This is the first kill where Beck wanted to do it. He justified himself out loud, his words echoing in the room. He killed Abel. He was going for all of us next. Yeah, this had to be done. Yeah, this had to be done. Beck walks past his onlookers, plants a grenade on each of the two massive batteries, which are hooked to a conduit of sorts as well as tons of wires. Let's go. We're done here. As they board their light cycles and choppers, they leave the tower and the building blows up behind them. End of line. Episode 12, The Heist. The recap for this episode is mostly normal, aside from one vocal glitch in the grid voice. In the communications center, Tron is watching over the female program from the end of Season 1, Episode 11. Her name is Charlotte. Paige is instructing Charlotte on how to read the data cube, as well as how to navigate its interface. The data cube holds lots of valuable information, passwords, flight paths, as well as messages, although most secret projects have to be cleared by a specific code key first. Meanwhile, in the garage, Beck is doing some team practice fights. If your armor gets hit, you're out. It's a jumbled mess of discs and bow staffs. Beck is doing pretty good in the fight, taking down different programs. Eventually, he comes face to face with Zed, and they have a duel. Zed uses his legs to keep Beck at a distance. The base intercom interrupts the fight, asking for Beck. He ends the duel and meets up with Tron, Charlotte, and Paige.
Charlotte explains an intercepted message that reads,
Solar Sailor in transit from Tron City to Clue's military depot in 2 cycles. Top secret project aboard, priority unload. Beck asks her to plot a course from Tron City to Clue's military depot. We then see the Solar Sailor will be far away from any backup support for 10 millicycles, leaving it vulnerable to attack. Plundering the Solar Sailor could slow down plans of the occupation, as well as provide necessary materials for the revolution. Tron suggests Beck ask the programs for help. This is a large project and requires specific expertise. Beck asks for a heavy machinery operator, someone to pilot the Solar Sailor, a few engineers, and multiple construction programs. He gets some volunteers. Beck then explains the plan. While this happens, we see the plan unfolding. Basically, Beck's explanation to the programs paired with the visuals makes it a narration for the audience. We'll need to be quick and silent in our arrival. The first thing we have to do is take control of the bridge. Tron and I will drop out of the chopper first. After the bridge is secure, Glitz will drop in and take over the controls. At first, Glitz, you'll start out by following the route the sailor was on until further notice. Tron and I will then move on back, clearing the security. Tron and Beck fight the enemy programs, derezzing them to keep them from making it to the drop-off zone. During this fight scene, Beck gets knocked off the sailor, barely hanging on. Tron grabs him and hoists him up with ease. It's a seamless move. You made that look easy. Oh, you know, I get lots of practice, saving you all the time. The demo crew will then drop in while this is happening and take out the connections. 4 programs drop in and damage the control room, which resides right above the cockpit. On their way out of the room, one program throws his disc and cuts an antenna. Charlotte will then test her connection with the solar sailor. All clear, Glitz, let's bring her home. Glitz will then steer the solar sailor off its path towards the predetermined landing zone.
Sir, we've lost connection with the solar sailor.
Send in some light jets and try to reestablish a connection. Charlotte, you'll be in charge of overseeing bogies. The likelihood of them not caring about this transport is 0%. As always, keep me and Tron informed, but if there's jets inbound, send Mara and Zed immediately. Mara, if you guys need any backup, let Paige know, and she'll bring her squadron to help protect the cargo. The jets, and this is super important, cannot see the transport at all. It's a sitting grid bug in the air, and a liability once we land it. 2 light jets are flying towards the last known location of the sailor. Zed and Mara intercept the jets and engage in a dogfight. Mara, let's bubble these buffoons. I'll take longitude, and I'll take latitude. The 2 programs circle in a light jet with their walls, trapping it inside. The enemy aircraft is constantly pulling up to avoid de-resolution. He disengages his light jet, hoping to dive through the last available hole in the spherical wall, but Zed cuts it off, sealing the pilot's fate. He hits the wall and de-reses. They then move towards the second light jet, which couldn't get a good shot in because they were moving too sporadically. Zed, let's corkscrew the last one. The 2 fly around their last opponent in a double helix shape of some kind, slowly closing in until he has nowhere to go but straight into a light wall. Glitz announces he's approaching the drop-off location. Clue dispatches Pavel and his elite squadron he gained at the end of episode 9. We were to follow Pavel's orders no matter the cost. We need our hands on the ODMP. The squadron flies to the last known location of the previous 2 jets. Pavel has a total of 10 jets, including him in pursuit. He suggests they split up a little to get more coverage of the area. Charlotte says the bogies are getting close to the sailor, and now would be a good time to push it a little bit faster. Zed and Mara close in on the sailor, protecting it. Pavel flies around a hill and sees the solar sailor.
He calls over the comms and the 9 other jets close in.
The light chopper above the clouds starts firing at some of the more spread out jets. Pavel starts firing at Tron and Beck, who were standing on the roof of the control room. The duo dodges the bullets from Pavel by diving off the sailor and flying into the sky. There's all sorts of chaos. Light jets getting cut off, bullets from above de-resing the elite pilots. 7 jets were destroyed. Pavel sees he's losing and smirks. He switches from his team comms to a direct clue line. He makes a big scene, asking for 10 more jets to meet at a location that he is sending now. Clue sends them. Pavel then turns off the direct comm and declares, "Retreat!" The 2 remaining light jets pull away, following Pavel. Mara tells Zed that they should follow the enemy light jets, but Tron suggests they stay with the sailor. They still don't have a way of knowing exactly where the sailor is. Glitz speeds it up a little. The solar sailor is approaching the hole. Charlotte gives the all clear, so Glitz lowers the sailor, slowing it as it enters a declining slope that eventually levels before hitting a flat wall. The sailor decelerates and halts right before it makes an impact on the hole's wall. Once the sailor lands, a holographic ground activates, concealing the solar sailor from above. Clue attempts to connect with Pavel. Pavel switches off his comm so that his private team cannot hear the conversation. We couldn't find the sailor, but there are tons of jets though, so I know we were close. Clue decides to call Fleur, the scientist behind the top secret project. Fleur informs Clue that there's a signal that hadn't been activated. A blip appears on the map with the code ODMP1. Clue and Charlotte see this code. The ODMP and the sailor by proxy now have a signal. Pavel tells his crew off comms to stay put in the location he told Clue he'd be at. He flies towards the ODMP-1 signal, landing on the ground and discovering the holographic ground disguise. He drops into the hole and is spotted by Tron and Beck. The duo pursues him, but he quickly cuts a lock off of the crate, using a tether to keep it shut. There's a large, magnificent machine with a large glass sphere, with 2 triangular wings. In those wings, 2 smaller spheres with cannons on them. He gets into the sphere and connects a wire to his disc. Welcome, Pavel, to the omnidirectional mecha program. He puts his hands in some bulky gloves that are magnetically attached to the roof. The voice guides him into liftoff. Tron and Beck hear the machine whirring up and decide to stop cutting the crate and start getting out of the way. As they do, Pavel and the ODMP-1 blast through the crate at full speed, but instead of hitting the other row of crates, the machine stops. The triangular wings rotate 90 degrees and it flies straight up and away. Beck and Tron look at each other in wonder, wondering what it is they just saw. Beck looks to the right of the now open crate. I don't know, but there's an identical crate right next to it. We cut to black. only to be greeted by light pouring into the crate where the camera resides. Now we have one of our own. True, but it and everything on the sailor are a bunch of sitting grid bugs. Beck comes into the base, asking for all hands on deck.
Resistance programs pour in and help load the crates onto some recognisers that were sitting on the sailor. After they fill up the garage with these stolen supplies, they blow up the solar sailor, the hole the rebels dug being its final resting place. In the chaos, Beck finds and sits with Paige.
I hope this goes well. We need this to go well. Everything will work out in the end. It's only a matter of time. End of line. Episode 13, Sanctimonious Pt1. This recap has a few more vocal glitches than the last episode. Pavel is disabling the signal code from the Pt1. He then asks the 12 remaining pilots to follow him. Mid-flight, he announces over direct to squadron line. Crew has been great, but now is the time for a new leader. The squadron is a little confused as to what is happening. They like Pavel, but are loyal to Clue. One begs the question, how do 13 of us take on a whole airbase? Pavel says to the 12 of them that they have to keep the runway grounded. He'll use the leverage that the Pt1 provides. When one of the pilots says he doesn't like the plan, Pavel quickly cuts him off and derests him with his light wall. Because Clue told you, and I quote, "Follow Pavel's orders no matter the cost." Some of you may be derezzed, but that's a sacrifice that has to be made for a new dawn, a new empire, a grid run by Pavel. This is our purpose. The squadron doesn't really see a choice and reluctantly agrees. The jets approach Clue's military depot, which is a large box protruding the cliff face and plunging into the water. There is a giant entrance with a large battleship on the inside. The squadron flies right above the box, where a large runway and a bunker at the end reside. Multiple 3-seat light jets sit on the runway. The 11 pilots begin raining hellfire on the airfield. Pavel begins to fly into the giant entrance of the box. He begins rapidly firing at everything. Hanging recognizers fall, and the large ship in the water damaged. An alarm sounds, programs get to their stations, anti-aircraft turrets, jets, and tanks begin taking out the incoming traitors. Charlotte gets a code through the data cube. She tells Tron that there's a code red. Clue's military depot is under attack. Beck suggested to be another rebel group. Tron thinks it could be a trap, but regardless of who is attacking, Clue is vulnerable. The rebels prepare to join the fight and fly over to the hangar. Pavel lands the Pt1 on deck and enters the bridge of the ship, taking control of the systems still running and using the guns to wreak havoc. Clue walks out of the large door from within the bay. Pavel aims the largest central cannon at him and fires. Clue shuts the door just in time, the bullet being stopped by the door, the metal melting and stopping right in front of his face. Aura gained as Clue doesn't even flinch. The bullet inches away from his face. Clue then climbs into an air vent and follows the vents till he's over the bridge of the ship. He drops down and approaches the bridge door. Pavel hears this and uses the door to push back Clue. They fight for a bit, but it ends with Pavel jumping through the bridge window. He slides down the large pillar supporting the bridge, landing on deck. He gets in the Pt1 and attempts to fly off. Clue pulls in the high-power anchor, which is honestly more like a harpoon. He aims the anchor and fires at Pavel, catching the Pt1 before it could leave the massive hangar. As Clue pulls the anchor back in, Pavel turns sharp right. The Pt1 flies in an arc and smashes, tumbling into the ground in front of the door where Clue is aura farming. As the last of Pavel's jets are destroyed, Clue announces that the threat has been eliminated. All mechanics are to report to the ship and fix it immediately. Clue walks over to the wreckage and sees Pavel with deep cuts and scrapes all over, struggling to stand. Clue chuckles slightly. "You make me laugh, Pavel." "How so?" Pavel says with a strained smile. "Why did you think that your little escapade here was going to work?" "Because, sir, it's in my programming to be a leader, and I can't do that if you're in charge. I saw an opportunity, and I took it." "I didn't have a name for the ship you carelessly vandalized, but I think I'll immortalize you in time by naming it after you." "Really? You'd do that for me?" "No." Clue lifts Pavel over his head and slams the center of his torso through some rubble that resembles rebar. The rubble pierces his back off-center, barely clipping his disc. Pavel lays there, lifeless. "I need 3 mechanics to work on the Pt1. All of the mechanics to be working on the MCS Sanctimonious." The big hangar door closes. The mechanics work tirelessly on the ship. The rebels arrive and begin attacking. Paige has a crew in choppers, shooting them from high up. Zed, Mara, and Tron lead squadrons. Beck is flying around in the Pt2, taking out loose bogies. A cannon shoots Paige's chopper. She dives down to the ground. Upon landing, she lets Beck know that she is safe, and she's going to try getting into the base, see what havoc she can cause from within. She switches her light line colors from the green with blue accents to the orange. She finds her way into the bunker. A little time passes, and the large bay door begins to open again. Beck flies down and waits. What's inside? I don't know yet. I'm waiting for this stupid bay door to open. Tron takes out a cannon and flies high, swooping down to see the bay door. Now that is a big door. The door has a little bit of an opening. The hull of the MCS Sanctimonious pokes out. The door continues opening up as the ship moves forward. Beck sees the giant ship and is absolutely stunned. The ship now has this protective shielding similar to what we see in the practice battles. End of line. Episode 14, Sanctimonious Part 2. The recap has a handful of vocal glitches. A familiar voice is cutting off our usual grid voice, but it hasn't fully taken control of the introduction. The MCS Sanctimonious is speeding through the water. The scale of it is enormous. The battleship is equipped to the teeth. A large cannon sits in the center, with multiple smaller turrets lining the edge. A flat landing strip, previously empty, now full of 3-seat light jets. The Renegade's attention has fully shifted. The large ship is heading straight towards Argon, and it needs to be stopped. The shielding is making it difficult to get any real hits. Tron suggests they try something new. Zed says perhaps they could use light walls to stop it, or at least slow it down. Beck calls for the light jets to fly ahead and make a thick wall using the smaller light walls. The jets fly back and forth, zipping this way and that way. The turrets on the ship fire and damage the light walls. Beck quickly sweeps back and forth using the Pt2's agility to his advantage. But all this work is to no avail. The shielding just breaks through it. An unstoppable force meets a movable object. Beck decides to fly up, landing on deck. Simultaneously, Clue asks a sentry to watch the controls. Beck gets out for a moment, but the largest cannon starts to point at him, and then he sees it, the Pt1 in all of its glory, a mech. The same basic shape of the Pt1 is visible, but it now has arms and legs. Beck climbs back into the Pt2. He flies up a bit and around the back, but Clue spins around and grabs the Pt2. Beck tries to fly away, but the Pt1 is still able to fly. The arms give it extra reach. Beck decides to even the playing field. Beck searches up and down the HUD, eventually finding a button. The two smaller balls become the shoulders. Holographic projections solidify into the arms. The central sphere becomes the waist, projecting the hips and legs before solidifying. Both the elbows and the knees are double jointed for that omnidirectional movement. As the mech battle begins, I'll be referring to the mechs as their respective drivers, and because the mechs are extensions of Beck and Clue, I'll be referring to different body parts. Also, the body is fully mobile, so the descriptions will be a little weird, but I hope my point gets across. Clue goes for a double leg takedown. He enters half guard. Beck spins onto his hands and knees, giving Clue his back. Clue raises his hands and goes for repeated 12 of the 6 strikes to the central glass sphere, but Beck is quick and backs up. It forces Clue onto the ground. Beck spins the waist around 180 degrees and proceeds to land some blows on the slanted panels, hoping to limit mobility. Clue shrimps away from Beck and gets a double overhook sweep from Butterfly Guard, tossing Beck over his head. Beck quickly stands up and sees the large central cannon aiming at the aircraft above. He punches Clue as he sprints past him and begins wrestling with the machinery, hoping to reset its position, delaying it from firing at his friends. Clue charges at Beck, who lands a donkey kick on his attacker. Clue flies back a little bit before activating the thrusters on the Pt1 and flying at Beck with a Superman punch. Beck sidesteps, grabs the lead arm and swings Clue into the cannon, damaging it, smoke billowing. The battle is interrupted by Zed. The ship is approaching the city and nothing is slowing this thing down. We need you inside, Beck. Beck responds while getting elbowed. What do you think I've been trying to do? I'm only one program. Alright, ODMP, let's see what kind of tricks you have up your sleeve. First, Beck notices on top of Clue's ship what he originally thought was a turntable, but after looking at it on the HUD, notices something else about it. Beck reaches up and grabs a large disc. The now illuminated disc pops off of the top. The disc is a lot larger than the usual scale, making for a giant saw blade, not so practical for throwing. He throws a few swipes. Clue dodges them. Beck throws a lead jab with the disc. Clue puts his left arm into the center of the disc, grabs his disc off the top, and cuts off Beck's arm. Clue now has 2 discs, giving him extra reach. He puts up a zombie guard and throws a rear cross with his left arm. Beck uses his one arm to grab the throw and move it into Clue's arm. They're now even, both only with one hand. Tron lands, saying he's going to move below deck, see what kind of damage he can do. He asks Beck to keep Clue occupied. Paige comes in, saying she found a ride at the military depot and is now on her way. Beck uses the thrusters to lift himself up. His legs spin super fast, getting in quite a few blows. He lands back down on the deck, throws a high kick to the glass sphere. It lands the opposite side of Clue's arm, but Clue spins around and catches the leg. He flies up, sweeping Beck off of his feet, and then suddenly drops. As the Pt2 lands on its back, the glass sphere cracks. Beck looks scared as Clue smiles on the other ship. Clue goes for a punch, but Beck reacts quickly using a right knee guard against the Pt1. With his left arm, he reaches for Clue's leg. Beck's thrusters push up as he pulls Clue's leg towards his chest. This motion throws Clue onto his back on the ground. Beck uses his knee to pin Clue, rips off the left leg, and when Clue tries flying away, Beck grabs the other leg. Beck spins repeatedly around and around, and eventually lets go, flinging Clue at the bridge. Clue ejects the Pt1, flying overboard. He activates his light jet and flies up. The Pt1 blows up just underneath the bridge windscreen. The sentry put in charge of the bridge takes off his helmet after the explosion. Turns out it was Jarvis from Tron Legacy. He flinches. Whew, that was close. Tron says there is a ton of mechanics below deck, tons of pistons and joints. There appears to be 8 identical assemblies, 4 on each side. Up top, a light jet comes flying super low, shooting at the Pt2. The first flyover misses most of the bullets, but the second flyover shatters the glass sphere. Beck drops down to the deck. He has to start sprinting to the bow of the ship. A forward-facing shot of Beck from far away shows the light jet super low, going to crash into him. There's also a tiny vessel at the bow of the ship in the water. We get a wide-angle side shot of the jet hitting the deck and blowing up. Beck swings off of the bow, nearly getting singed. He drops below into the water. Paige exits the vessel we briefly saw and helps lift him up. Can't have you exiting the battle now, can we? It wouldn't be ideal, no. Thank you, Paige. The duo flees the bow of the ship and then circles back. The MCS Sanctimonious is facing them head-on. Paige activates the light wall on the submersible. Right before they collide, she dives down, scraping the bottom of the ship. The light wall slices through like butter. Tron is below deck. The tiny sliver of damage from Paige and Beck's maneuver begins to show. The water shoots out of the cut with great pressure. The cut exponentially expands. Water comes pouring in. Tron flees before he drowns. In the bridge, alarms are going off simultaneously. Approaching land. Hull compromised. Safety seals damaged. The alarms blare almost in unison. Jarvis is panicking. He's like, "Oh my god!" A light jet lands on deck. Clue steps out and makes his way to the bridge. He barges in and Jarvis spins around. "Sir, we have a teensy bit of a problem. What would you require of me?" "We'll hold for now. The land is our friend." Paige and Beck circle back and forth, cutting more and more lines into the boat's hull. The light jets above are still dodging turrets. Mara tells her crew, "Hang in there, guys. This will be all over soon. The ship is sinking." Just then, an alarm blares from outside the ship. The land is approaching, the city not far behind. The ship is mostly submerged, the deck barely above the water. Suddenly, from the front moving on back, 8 massive legs extend from the water. The Sanctimonious crawls out of the water onto the land. The water it took in is now spilling out of the bottom of the hole. Time to switch rides, I guess. Again, they close the submersible into a baton and stare up at the Sanctimonious as it steps over them. Beck calls over the intercom, "Tron, you've gotten the best look at the legs. What's the plan?" Mara, Zed, and their crews need to steer the ship away from the buildings. They begin shooting at the legs of the ship. They also weave light walls between the legs. For the most part, this is ineffective. The legs tear right through it. But the repetitive onslaught does slow it down just a pinch. A few light jets get cut off by the legs while weaving and blow up, unable to further help the cause, but not forgotten. Charlotte is one of the few programs at the base, so she is to load up a recognizer with batteries, use whatever manpower is there to help her with that. Paige, Beck, and Tron are to get the hull prepped for the batteries. Paige and Beck start by grabbing onto a leg. Paige lets go at the height of its lift, using physics to keep her moving up. When she starts to lose momentum and begins to fall, she grabs onto the giant leg again.
Beck follows suit, complimenting her ingenuity. The duo sees a small gap in the leg when it lifts, giving them just a bit of time to crawl underneath the mechanism and inside the hole before the leg goes down again, crushing them. They time it right and make it through. They are now inside the hull of the MCS Sanctimonious. The ship is getting close to buildings now. Programs are starting to flee the area, just not fast enough. Clue sets a course and bails with Jarvis. They can simply blame the whole disaster on the rebel group, a weapon test gone wrong. Charlotte shows up with 4 batteries. Beck, Tron, and Paige unload the 4 batteries and begin connecting them to the port side legs. They connect them, but before they could set the timer, the ship crashes into a building. One of the batteries jostles, falling through the giant cut in the hole and down below into the streets. Because the battery is connected, the line starts pulling the other batteries down below. Paige thinks quickly and cuts the line before the last 2 can fall. Tron has Charlotte, Paige, and Beck leave. He makes a small incision in the battery, which quickly develops into a crack and explodes. We don't see if Tron makes it out. As the front of the ship explodes, the whole building it crashed into collapses. The arachnid ship gets squashed like a bug, stopping it in its tracks. The crew stumbles back into the base. Beck seems off. He believes his mentor just died. The episode ends with Clue twisting the situation against the rebels on billboards all across town. Tron is shown under the rubble, struggling to get up. End of line. Episode 15. Fleeting Memories. This recap has a handful of vocal glitches, a familiar voices cutting off our usual grid voice, but it hasn't fully taken control of the introduction. It has the same amount of distortion as episode 14 because they take place simultaneously. This episode is going to be mostly atmospheric and reflective, lots of beautiful shots, not so much action. Pavel wakes up, impaled by rubble. He breaks the rubble and slides off of it. He stumbles around the base in a haze. He doesn't know his name or his intentions. He is emotionless. He comes across several programs. They step out of his way, looking at him, all confused. They say things like, "What's wrong, Pavel?" or, "Whoa, what happened to you?" One program says, under his breath, "Serves you right." Eventually, Pavel finds a familiar face, Paige. He asks her who she is. How does he know her? She seems a little confused at first. They've been coworkers for a very, very long time, but then it clicks that he actually doesn't know anything. This isn't a game, it's not a bit. He asked if she could tell him what happened. Paige is disgusted and a little amused that he would ask her for help. He wants to know who messed up his memories. She pauses for a moment before chuckling. It was probably you. There is no one to blame for this. Everyone that slightly cares about you, or more accurately is forced to be around you, has been betrayed by you. You framed me, you framed Hopper, you sucked up to Dyson to hitch a ride up the ranks, and when that didn't work out, you defaulted to bringing down Tesla. You're nothing. Nothing to me, nothing to Clue, nothing to the programs of the grid. You're just a sad, disappointing program that finally got what they deserved. Pavel looks displeased, a little guilty, almost like a kid who doesn't understand what they've done wrong but is getting scolded anyway. The names, Hopper, Tesla, Clue, they ring in his head. Slowly, memories appear. He remembers being lifted up in the air, tired, beaten. He sees the person lifting him up, but the face is fuzzy. Who did I hurt last? Maybe they'll have the answers. You're standing in Clue's bunker. Maybe try finding him. Paige pats him on the shoulder as she walks past. Good luck on your journey, I guess. Clue is in a throne room under the runway, waiting by a large window, the throne just behind him. He's staring into the outlands as the sounds of war echo above. He's talking with Fleur, the genius behind the ODMP. You confirmed you only made 1, and now you're telling me you have 2 and left the plans on the sailor?
Well, I figured I would be a nice surprise if I made more. A whole army of ODMP sounds way nicer than just 1 ODMP, wouldn't you agree?
Typically, yes, but that's why I wanted it to be...
A one-man army, yes. I wasn't planning on your sailor being hijacked and looted.
Me neither. I'm more so frustrated that you didn't tell me that you were making more so I could properly prepare. Now I have to deal with a one-man army that isn't on my side.
I see your frustrations, and I apologize for my actions.
Just make sure the one I do have access to is up and running by the time we depart. You're excused.
Yes, sir. Right away, sir.
As Clore leaves, he brushes past Pavel with his chipped disc drawn.
Excuse me, Pavel.
Clue perks his ears, turning around. He's shocked but collects himself as Pavel approaches.
I need help.
You're more persistent than I gave you credit for. What if I can't help you? What if you're just broken? Pavel thinks for a bit. Thinks about the faceless program that lifted him up. He thinks about a program in white causing chaos. Then bring me the program who did this to me. Clue realizes that Pavel doesn't remember anything and chuckles. Why are you here, in this building? Pavel scans through his memories of today as well as his fuzzy past.
I was a general.
Haha, you wish. Merely a lieutenant. Tell me, Pavel, why would I attack a lieutenant in my own army? Pavel's grip on his disc eases a bit. I don't know, sir. Because I wouldn't, especially with someone as determined as you. It sounds like one of our common enemies damaged you, and I have a sneaking suspicion that our mutual program is in our sights. Clue points at a smaller window opposite the throne at the Pt2. This conversation happens while the rebels are attacking the base and the MCS Sanctimonious has finished being fixed. Clue ends the conversation. If you'd excuse me, I have a purpose to fulfill, and rebels in the way. He walks past Pavel and gets on a platform that drops to the MCS Sanctimonious. Pavel is confused at all the conflicting information. He feels betrayed. Whether it's by his own memories or people taking advantage of him, he doesn't know. He gets on a train just about to leave the military depot. It's here that he finds he is despised by everyone. He sits as his memories slowly trickle into his consciousness. He sees battles between him and Beck and pictures of the renegade, but he also sees Paige threatening him and the scowls of the present. He climbs up on top of the train as it departs Clue's base. He thinks about jumping. He's pissed at how hazy everything is. He wishes he could focus. Each memory he skims through takes 1000% effort. It hurts to stand. It hurts to think. It hurts to think. It hurts to think about all that he's done. It's not the deeds that damn him. It's the fact that after everything he did, he never won. He had to win. Otherwise, it was for nothing. He looks at the horizon. His nearsighted vision is fuzzy. He strains himself to make the blurry chaos in the distance become clear. For a brief moment, his sight clears, and as he sees the battle, it clicks. He can't be fixed, but he might as well finish what he started. He takes a leap off of the train and flies away in his light jet over to the battle. The MCS Sanctimonious has taken off. Tons of jets are firing at it. We see a recap of sorts of the Sanctimonious Part 2 events, but from Pavel's perspective. He shoots a few jets down, he destroys some light walls. Once he spots the program in white, he circles the mech battle. He swoops low to hit Beck in the Pt2. He hits a few bullets but misses the swipe. After shattering the glass sphere on the second attempt, he swoops down towards the bow of the ship. We cut to a cockpit shot of Pavel. This is the happiest we've ever seen him. No thought in his mind besides death and fulfillment. His grin turns into maniacal laughter. He keeps his eyes open as he crashes. Flames erupt into the cockpit. The screen fills with fire quickly until it's white. End of line. Episode 16, Lockdown. This episode's recap starts with the usual grid voice, but it sounds tired and broken. After a sentence, it glitches, and Cyrus's voice is in full effect. A crystal clear Cyrus recaps the past events as well as an unseen but implied event from episode 11, Upload. It shows the upload bar hitting upload complete 100% as Cyrus dereses. Tron is trapped under the rubble. He reflects on how he got here, all he's been through. Dyson is gone. He failed Cyrus. He failed to protect the ISOs like Kevin wanted. He has no choice but to get up. He can't fail the grid now, not with this many people counting on him. Clue is in reach for the first time in hundreds of cycles, but the rubble feels impossibly heavy. He's not worried about Beck. He knows that Beck is ready. He's strong, smart, and diligent. He's worried about not being the dependable program that people need. Alan Bradley didn't create a quitter. He created the greatest security program of all time. Tron lifts the beam up and steps aside, letting it fall with a clang.
He uses his disc to cut through the rubble, making his way to the top. Back at the base, Paige is tending to some programs injured in battle. Beck is pacing around the base, stressed about Tron. He goes to leave the base to get some fresh air, but the door won't open. He hits the open button again and again, but nothing happens. Suddenly, on every screen in the base, a digitized Cyrus is grinning. Over the intercom, Cyrus informs the rebels that he has trapped them to give them a choice. Either they can naturally run out of energy, which is a slow and painful de-resolution, or they can signal for help and reap the wrath of Clue. Either way, he gets a lovely evening, watching the only programs that can stop him die. We see in the large base garage the stolen recognisers and crates from the heist. The large door used to load things in just will not budge. In the main room, the rebels are prying at the main door. Zed tries using the mechanic wrench to open it up, but the tool isn't working. Digital Cyrus controls the surrounding grid. Everything he tries gets overridden. Cyrus is antagonizing Zed the entire time, telling him he's not a great mechanic, and if he were a good mechanic, he could just get the door open, plain and simple. Zed hangs his head low for a moment, then goes back to trying to break into the door. Beck is pacing around, partially because he's thinking of ways to get out, but mostly because he's worried. Has he finally been bested? If yes, it's all his fault for not being strong enough. Not strong enough to be the next Tron, not strong enough to beat the old Renegade. His pacing is starting to worry the other programs, so Paige pulls him aside into the bunk room. Mara tells the programs to remain calm and to be thinking of ways to get out. The programs are talking through their confusion, hardly listening to Mara. Cyrus starts whispering to Mara.
Watching you guys struggle with basic order is hilarious. I mean, you think by now they'd respect you. After all you and Zed do, perhaps it reflects your leadership skills. Not everyone is cut out for the spotlight, you know.
Mara kicks the screen he's on, breaking it. Beck and Paige are in the room alone. The door closes and Paige asks him what the plan is. Beck doesn't know. He starts spiraling. What if I'm not enough? For what? You're obviously enough for those programs out there. If they didn't trust you, they wouldn't be here right now. Well, then maybe they shouldn't have trusted me. I couldn't protect Cutler or Abel or Tron. I think you're forgetting that all of this is not your fault. It's Cyrus's. He's the enemy, not you. Paige sits him down gently. She points out that he was alone in this difficult battle for a while. He survived this long and has gathered more people together than ever before. Beck is at his strongest right now. He's a better program than Cyrus ever was. She pulls the back of his head close, foreheads touching. Tron, and I for that matter, picked you for a reason. You're smart, diligent, and you care deeply for the things you love. He pulls his head back to look into her eyes, a look that says, thank you. The look will have to suffice because Beck can't muster up the words under the pressure of incoming tears. Her hand moves from his head to the small of his back, and she says, be the leader we know you to be. Tron makes it to the base. He tries getting in the door, but it's sealed.
Beck, it's me. Open up.
Mara tells him through the door to get help. Cyrus has taken over the base. Tron hits the door again, and it opens. He tries to walk in, but Mara sees in her peripheral a smiling Cyrus on a screen. Mara pushes Tron back outside just as the door slams shut. He tries yelling through the door that he would be better help outside. Tron drives back into the city. He knocks out 2 guards and takes their staffs. He uses a mechanic's wrench to alter the code. He then uses the stabs, a mechanic wrench, his disc, a large battery, and some other scraps he bought from a corner mechanic store to create a machine. As he flips the mechanic's wrench, Tron exclaims, "Thank you, Beck." He puts the contraption together. He poses the machine just outside the base doors. He activates it and energy flows into the door. The machine uses the staff's properties of grid manipulation, which we see when the floor falls in Season 1, Episode 11. The battery powers the machine while overloading the door circuits, making it hard for Cyrus to enter the machine and disable it. Tucked away in one of the storage rooms, a parts printer, normally used for mechanical parts, starts up and begins to print what looks like the shell of a program. Beck and Paige rush out of the bunk room at the sound of Tron trying to break in. Cyrus is trying to get in Tron's head, telling him that trying to break in is pointless. Cyrus can hold the door forever. I mean, eventually the battery is going to run out. Meanwhile, Beck notices the screens have gone dark since Tron has been there. He predicts that Cyrus hasn't grown strong enough in the grid to have complete control over large areas just yet. He decides to grab a small battery from the storage room and hook it up to the back door while Cyrus is focused on Tron. A fuzzy, pixelated, dreamy shot from Cyrus's point of view There's Beck at the back door and Tron in the front. He knows he can't let anyone out, so he opens the door for Tron and ignites the small battery next to Beck. The battery explodes and the door and the frame holding it weakens. Cyrus quickly activates the other batteries in the storage room. The ceiling becomes unstable and crashes down hard. Beck gets his leg pinned under some rubble. He begins to cut away at the beams. Tron urges the programs out. Bartik and Hopper lead the way to help guide the rebels. Zed, Mara, Paige, Beck, and Tron stay behind to help with the flow of things, making sure everyone gets out. After most of the programs get out, the doors slam closed again. The programs on the outside stare at the door. They start murmuring amongst themselves as to what they should do. Cyrus starts yapping again.
Since you rebels found a workaround for my choice, and I want you to know that your actions have consequences, I guess I'll just have to choose for you. Let's see, Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch the renegade by his toe. Mr. Flynn told me to pick the very best one, and you are it. Oh, look at that. The signal it is.
What's he talking about?
Clue.
He's signaling for Clue.
I really am sorry about this. Actually, no, I'm not. You guys were fun, but you forced my hand. Goodbye, renegades.
Clue gets a signal from the supposedly empty sector just outside of town that reads, "Help." Why would an empty sector have a large enough signal output to reach him? He understands it to be a rebel mistake and sends a whole army to the location. The faces of the rebellion are running out of time. End of line. Episode 17, How This Ends, Part 1. This episode's recap is important, so I wrote it out, but I mainly wanted an excuse to do my Cyrus impression.
Accessing archived data. Beck and his friends were forced out of their home. They made it alright for a while. They had newfound resources, what seemed to be countless victories, and even each other. Aw, isn't that sweet? Look, they even destroyed Clue's little toy. But not long ago, their safe house for the revolution became a not-so-safe house. All thanks to yours truly. And now with Clue on the horizon, the second renegade trapped, and all hope lost, I beg you to join me as your pathetic group of programs struggles for the grid's last chance at freedom.
Beck opens the episode with a speech. Clue is on his way to take everything we have built here. According to Clue, the very foundation of our community is going to be crushed today. He thinks that by squashing our base and all of those that call it home, that the grid will continue on in peace, that our causation of unrest will wither out. But it's a lie. The foundation we stand on isn't our support for each other, it's hope. Hope that someday the future programs of Argon and Gallium, Purgos, and Tron City will see a better cycle than we ever did. Clue can't extinguish hope, but he sure is going to try. So no matter what happens here today, let it be heard across the grid. Clue's biggest failure was thinking he could kill our unwavering desire to make a better future for ourselves and all those that walk in our footsteps. Tron, would you like to add anything?
You took the words right out my mouth.
Let's get moving. Beck smiles and takes it as a compliment, as he should. Beck and D group prepare for battle, grabbing grenades, smoke bombs, extra batons just in case, as well as creating a lightweight, tank-resistant barricade. Beside our group of main characters, there's 15-ish rebel programs still trapped inside the base, preparing for the worst. Just outside the base, Bartik gives a speech to the programs around him. Listen up, programs. I don't know what this evening has in store for us, but our friends are trapped, and they're counting on us to be here. So for now, we must fight for our future and for theirs. Recognizers float ominously, some carrying tanks, others holding crates of troops. Bartik, Hopper, and the rebels they inspired begin to fight the troops as they come out.
Let's get 'em hell, boys!
Bartik, Hopper, and their ragtag group of programs fight with everything they have. They drift around on bikes and crash into the guards. It works for a little while, but they're spread too thin. After all of their effort, there are still hundreds of soldiers pouring out of the crates. The tanks don't even bother with the outside crew, they just go straight to blasting the main door of the base. Eventually, a tank blasts the door open. It flies backwards into the base, derezzing a random program unfortunate enough to be standing behind it. Troops pour into the base, the rebels get surrounded quickly. It feels like a 4v1. The rebels try their best to keep a thick layer of smoke at the door to help disorient the incoming guards. Hopper is exhausted and asks Bartik to retreat.
Bartek pushes back at first, but he realizes they're surrounded and significantly outnumbered. They've given a good fight, and now regrouping and starting over seems like a smart option for both Hopper and Bartek. The duo calls out for the rebels to fall back and get to safety. Most of the outside rebels retreat, fleeing into the city, but some stay behind, choosing to fight, even though they are not likely to make it out. For every guard killed inside the base, it seems like 2 more show up in their place. The rebel programs are de-rezzed left and right. Mara is overwhelmed. Zed slips through and charges away from his attacker and pulls the guards off of her. He fights while Mara gets back up. He asks if she's okay. She shakily affirms as she looks up and sees him de-rezzed, split down the middle. As the black guard peels him into 2 and steps through him like a double door, Zed's 2 halves turn into cubes. Mara cries out and goes ham, de-rezzing the guard that murdered her friend, barely keeping tears back as she fights. Beck fights his way over to Tron. They both agree that they have to get out of this base. The duo fights their way over to Paige and eventually Mara. The 4 are back-to-back fighting the onslaught together. They clear up pretty much every guard and now are by the front door. Paige peeks her head out and sees 4 tanks, a sky full of recognizers, and more black guards on the way. The remaining 4 rebels devise a plan, with each member pitching in ideas as to what they can do to help. As they come up with a plan with perfect synergy on screen, it shows them performing the following actions. Mara holds the lightweight barricade as she advances towards a tank. Tron and Beck de-res the guards that try to come around the back. Paige stays behind in the base, lobbing grenades over her friends, taking out guards in front of them. The trio makes it to the tank on the right. Once they take out the guards and commandeer the tank, they angle it up. Paige rides her light cycle up the barrel, ramps off, and grabs onto a low gliding recognizer. Paige climbs aboard, de-reses the guard inside, and drops some cables onto the commandeered tank, lifting her friends up into the sky. Paige has to do most of the aiming due to the cords interfering with the cannon atop the tank. Mara begins firing, taking out 2 of the other tanks and some of the soldiers as they slowly fly away from the battle. Mara mentions to Beck that Zed would have loved this, to which he agrees. The last of the active tanks fires, hitting one of the landing gear on the stolen recognizer. The recognizer crashes almost straight down. Paige is thrown from the cockpit and onto the ground in the crash. The angle of its descent causes one of the landing gear to land directly on the cockpit of the tank cannon. Due to her position, Mara was crushed from the middle of her torso down to her toes. After some wriggling, Beck and Tron get loose. Beck calls out to Mara, asking if she's okay, but there's no response. He sees her hand and grabs it, calling out again and again. Nothing. Tron is struggling to pull him away as her hand crumbles in his fingers. Beck snaps up, saying, "Paige." He doesn't care about the army surrounding him. He's more focused on making sure his last remaining friend is alright. The duo leaves the tank and is immediately surrounded by tons of black guards. Tron and Beck are both visibly slowing down, getting more and more tired. Beck is trying to peek over the horde and find Paige in the mess. Paige sees Clue stepping out of the throne ship. She throws her disc, de-resing one of the guards charging her. The disc goes through the guard's head and almost hits Clue. He dodges it as it rebounds off the ship and goes back to Paige. She pulls out a baton and transforms it into a staff, using it to pole vault over the guards surrounding her. Mid-air, she grabs her disc before landing back on the ground. She's physically exhausted from the crash and the fighting, but gives it her all to get to Clue. Clue signals for her to be swarmed. She takes out a few goons, but one sentinel manages to parry her attack. He grabs her outstretched wrist with his left arm as he steps to the left. With his right arm, he grabs her tricep close to her armpit. As the guard spins Paige around and grabs her left arm, he forces her onto her knees. The other guards grab her, keeping her still. The sentinel pushes his foot on her back and pulls her arms simultaneously. She lets out a long, guttural scream as her shoulders slowly de-res at the seams. She falls to her stomach, armless. Beck cries out to get to her, but it's too late. The sentinel steps forward, crushing her head into cubes as she warily calls out to Beck. Beck falls to his knees and is quickly apprehended. Tron is distracted momentarily by his friend's loss, but it's just enough time to get him overrun and put in cuffs as well. The 2 are brought onto Clue's throne ship by several guards. Clue turns, following closely behind. Jarvis tells the guards to do another thorough sweep of the rebel base. He wants the remaining rebels to be brought in for questioning.
Beck and Tron are thrown into cages, where Tron asks Beck if he has any ideas. Beck is completely silent, looking at his hands, breathing heavily and holding back tears. Tron mentions quietly that when they get out, he hopes to find Flynn. Maybe from the outside, Flynn can delete Clue as well as destroy the digital Cyrus before he learns too much and becomes powerful enough to destroy the grid from within. Clue's ship pulls away. Beck looks out at the destruction. His friends, his hard work, Clue, had won the battle. He destroyed the rebel base. Beck is hopeful that some rebels escaped. He hopes that this massacre will serve as a stain on Clue's reputation forever. He hopes that in the future, programs will rise up again, but he doesn't believe it. Freedom has never felt more unobtainable. He can't hold back his thoughts anymore. He weeps. First one tear, then hundreds more. Tron looks over at his friend. The sight of a once determined program now overcome with grief saddens him. He's angry to an extent. How could this happen? His job is to bring peace and security to the system, a job made nearly impossible when the program with the most power is hellbent on removing the emotions and personalities that make the programs who they are. How are programs supposed to unlock their fullest potential if the system requires them to stay as they are? Clue wants a perfectly sterile environment with no bugs, but the bugs are what give the environment its charm. Tron's emotions almost spill out. He takes a deep breath in and exhales. Hope. He hopes for a future where programs are free from the tyranny of evil. End of line. Episode 18, How This Ends, Part 2. The recap is Cyrus yet again, but it's not nearly as dramatic as the first half of the finale. It's a pretty standard recap, mainly because I want to dive into the second half of the finale. Beck and Tron are dropped off, kneeling in front of Clue. Both of our heroes are closely monitored by two blackguards stationed right behind them. Tron is searched and stripped of his belongings, the mechanic's wrench, some grenades, and even his batons. I don't want you getting any ideas like your friend here. No light cycles allowed in the repurposing chamber. Clue is yapping about Tron and how he's managed to evade him this long, but the games end now. Clue walks over to Beck. He takes Beck's disc and fiddles with it as he paces around. He throws the disc at the ground, letting it rebound back into his hand. Clue continues this motion like a bouncy ball. He talks with Tron about the good old days when they were creating the perfect system, instead of fixing a broken one. He says that someday the grid will be perfect, neat, orderly. He's been given trouble far too many cycles now. Tron and his futile attempts at a revolution have been mere roadblocks. Clue walks over to Tron and kneels down with him. I'm sick of obstructions. The grid is sick of obstructions. And by design, you seek to plant more and more in my path. It's your only flaw, especially now that your scars have healed. You see, Tron, I can't turn you loose again. Clue arises and walks over to Beck, looming in front of him. Clue bounces the disc one last time, but he changes its trajectory. The disc bounces at an angle, splicing Beck's forehead in two. Beck screams in agony as the disc bounces off the ceiling and back into Clue's outstretched hand. We see Tron's face as we hear Beck scream and slowly turn into cubes. Tron's silent expression turns into a near growl with clenched teeth. Otherwise, we'd get more of him. Beck was a better program than you'll ever be, he yells as he stands up. He jumps and kicks Clue in the face. The guards rush him and pin him down. He yells with an exasperated growl. This low growl is the last thing he utters before a guard smacks Tron in the back where the disc is held. We cut to black. Tron awakes all groggy. His suit has been changed from the classic white to the stealth suit. Hands cuffed, no batons, and both discs on his back locked. The iconic Rinsler purr is all that is heard until Clue speaks. I had you all prepped, the new suit, the code we added to your repurposing protocol to keep your face concealed and also to discourage you from using your voice. The whole 9 yards, old friend. You can take my voice, burn my name, but you will never be able to remove the hope that the programs cling to, the hope that Beck instilled upon them. Upon me. If I have to repurpose every program in the system, then so be it. I'll just have to start with you. Get on with it then. Like I said, we were going to, but then something came my way, something I thought you should hear. The development of a program that was created by another program. Isn't that something? Clue opens his disk files and shows the 3D hologram of a program that looks uncannily like Beck and Page, a perfect blend of the two. It seems our creator thought it would be hilarious if two random programs could create life, but not two of his most trusted friends. Fascinating. We're then shown the following conversation through a flashback. Blackguards find the nameless program waking up on a parts printer inside the rebel base. The child of Beck and Page looks a little lost, mentally, that is. When the guards brought him before Clue, he didn't seem to remember anything. Clue and his goons checked the code, and it only dated back a few cycles. His origin point was a parts printer, non-ISO. Only 2 pairs of random code, which we trace back to one of my old commanders, who is now dead, and to the father, whose disk resides on your back. Just in case I wanted to experiment with it in the future. Don't you find that interesting, Tron? Our creator entrusted 2 random programs with the ability to create life, but not us. A power he reserved for himself, haplessly entrusted to 2 weak, pathetic programs that couldn't even preserve themselves. Cutting back to the present, Clue pauses as he recaptures his breath from the anger. Seeing you this frustrated fills me with joy. Truly, it does. After all you've done to my home, this feeling is the least of what you deserve. Where's the program now if his existence is so important to you? He shared the same fate as his father. He couldn't stand to look at him any longer. It was insulting, really. Tron shakes his head disappointedly at the news. Clue looks at Tron, disgusted with Tron's lack of anger towards the creator that betrayed him. I've had enough of this. Proceed with the cleansing. I'll see you on the other side of your little attitude adjustment. Clue gestures for the sentry to start the repurposing process. The full repurposing process is shown. Once started, Tron hits the glass, yelling after Clue. Silencing me will only solidify your role in this dictatorship. The programmers will grow tired of it. And then you'll follow my lead. It's only a matter of time. Tron grows more weary until he ultimately falls asleep. His code gets extracted slowly, the angry scowl he had on his face disappearing. As the newly repurposed code is inserted, Tron's face gets less and less emotive until all that's left is a completely neutral expression. Throughout the process, the purr gets louder and louder. Rinsler's helmet activates. This is the last time we see his face until Tron is ultimately rescued out of the sea of simulation. We cut to a large gathering. Programs are surrounding the game arena. Clue is overlooking the games being played. Rinsler is on Clue's left, Jarvis is on his right. Clue talks to Jarvis over his shoulder. I want to continue the repurposing initiative immediately. Programs that violate laws shall be taken in. Jarvis asks about where they're going to house all the newly repurposed programs. I'll tend to that later. For now, I want to watch. It's been a while since I've been able to enjoy myself. Rinsler, you care to give the audience a show? Rinsler looks at Clue slightly, nods down, and turns away, leaving the room. Clue looks out over the games as Rinsler steps into the arena. The battle commences, and Rinsler is toying with the program. After a little time passes, the program is derezzed. We see Clue smile. He's finally done it. Total control. He's turned Kevin's greatest ally into a pet, and has squashed the largest revolution against him. If only Kevin could see what he's created. A perfect system. But it lacks purpose. There's a whole world that Kevin has selfishly kept for himself. A whole other imperfect system. Out there, somewhere, is a new world. Out there is the grid's future. Out there is Clue's destiny. End of line.